Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. Feels dark in here. I am off of my laptop intentionally right now to ensure that all recordings go smooth. Welcome, fam. Welcome, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Callan, would you turn the air off real quick? Thank you. It got chilly. It got cold. Kev, my man, 6Kev on tonight as well. What's good, brother? How you doing? My man. All right, let me get my screen shared here. All righty. Let me make sure that all are muted and cannot unmute. Mute all. And do not allow. There we go. All righty. There we go. All righty, well, welcome, fam. We'll wait just another minute or two before we actually get started. That way we can allow people to trickle in. I'm expecting the attendance to round up to about the 110, 115 area live in person tonight, maybe even up as high as 120 for our first lesson. But welcome, everybody. Last night was the kickoff, but tonight we truly begin. Tonight is when we are going to actually start our program. We are going to dive into the first of the last 8 lessons, plus the bonus lessons, that you will need as a trader. I genuinely believe that, right? So a few key points about today's agenda. And before I do that, I'm going to wait that aforementioned minute just to allow a few more people to trickle in. But tonight's going to be a good one. Tonight is going to be, it's very essential. For some of you who are more advanced traders, tonight might feel, the back end of tonight might feel a little bit repetitive, but I promise you it's necessary in my opinion. I wouldn't, none of this in here that I teach is not what I believe to be truly and absolutely necessary. And for those of you who are 14 new beginner traders in the group, it may seem like we are moving fast through the broker section. I promise you, this is not the section to be worried about being confused about. I anticipate you, it's the kind of thing where it'll click very quickly. I can assure you of that, right? So with that being said, here we are at 8:02 Eastern, 5:02 Pacific. Let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to lesson 1 of Mastermind 10.0. I'm incredibly excited to have you. I hope you all had a good trading day. And by a good trading day for you as a group, I hope that means that you did not trade at all, or if you did, you used very small size. Now, we are going to talk in tonight's and tomorrow night's lesson about the exact path that I want you to take from a risk management perspective while you're in and going through these 8 classes live, right? But we had that huge conversation last night about how ultimately, trading aggressively or trading at all during these 4 weeks is ultimately a recipe for disaster. Whether you win or lose, right? Whether you win or lose, it's a recipe for disaster. And I'm sorry. Callan, I'm really sorry. We turned the air back on. It got hot and I'm wrong. He's not there. I'm sorry. I have to turn the air on real quick. It got real hot in this room real quickly. But nonetheless, we talked about how last night, sorry for the interruption. We talked about how last night, how trading during the mastermind itself can be tricky, right? And we would not necessarily recommend it as a group because we want you to maintain your mentals above all else as you go through this program, right? Now, the other things that we mentioned, so I lost my train of thought there a little bit, or the other things that we are going to cover tonight. We're going to go through the stages of a trader, which is extremely essential to our program as a whole. I heard rumors that my slides for the stages of a trader ended up in the same slide deck as some others out there. I don't know that for sure. However, I can assure you that these are very uniquely created stages that I have been presenting on since Mastermind 1.0 way back on the day. And the goal of going through the stages of a trader is I want you to identify where you're at right now, because the reality is that you're probably not very far off from the next stage. It's probably just 1 or 2 things that you need to tweak. So if you can identify what stage you're at in the beginning of this program, then we circle back and I'm going to ask you what stage you think you are at when we do a bonus lesson several months from now, right? After you've gone through the lesson, gone through the experience and had the screen time and have been working through and trading on your own. right? From there, we're also going to talk about what to expect overall from the program. We did that a lot last night, so that'll be a briefer conversation tonight. We're going to talk about an ideal path in terms of risk management and how I want you all to start that, and then we're going to continue that conversation tomorrow night. And then the main bulk of tonight's priority is a broker breakdown. So in the broker breakdown, what we are going to do is I'm going to take you through Thinkorswim and just show you how to have your chart set up the exact way as mine. And then I'm going to take you through interactive brokers and show you how I have my execution screen laid out at all times. Now, again, for those of you who have some more experience, you might be like, oh my gosh, like Jake, I know these platforms already. I get it, but I promise you, like I mentioned, everything comes together full circle. I'm going to make a speech in lesson 8 about how specific things that I talk about tonight, we couldn't have done the program without you learning those particular things, right? So I promise you, stay with me. Everything I do in this is extremely, extremely calculated, right? So for those of you who are newer, we are going to go through Thinkorswim rather quickly, but I promise you, we do not leave you hanging on how that platform works. It's a very customizable platform. It's definitely something that might require some that it would be a more efficient use of your time. We'll talk about that to study it outside of this lesson. So with that being said, let's begin. As well as I should mention tonight on the Zoom chat to help answer questions, we have Joel and my man, Mr. J-Bab. So Joel and J-Babs are both experts on Thinkorswim, and J-Bab has a ton of experience with interactive brokers as well. So they'll be able to help answer any questions that pop up about those brokers as they come along and answer them the same exact way that I would. So super grateful for having them both on. And yeah, one last note. Sorry, I'm just keep my brain's. I'm very tired today, so my brain's kind of working like that. But one last note that I will say, J-Bab, Joel, if you need anything, just text me because I am noting. But one last thing that I will say is that for those of you who are international students who cannot use Thinkorswim for whatever reason, we have a thorough breakdown of how to get your charts to look similar to mine using TradingView. We have a breakdown of TradingView in general, so we will make sure to get that to you as well. We do not leave you hanging on any fronts, right? So with that, let me make sure that everything is screen sharing the right way. I haven't had a text from J-Bab or Joel, so I believe we are good to go. Good to go. And let's rock and roll, right? So we talked about all of this last night. Again, my name is Jake Ricci. I'm going to be your mentor for the course of the rest of your life. I truly believe this is the last program that you're ever going to take. Now, one thing that I always like to mention is to have some clear expectations for the program, right? As I mentioned, you are going to have all of the tools needed for consistency and profitability. However, I'm not here to lie and bullshit you and say that after 4 weeks, you are going to be golden boy, pony boy, right? You're not going to be a perfect trader after these 4 weeks. It's going to take a lifetime of experience in order for you to reach the goals that you hope to reach. I still learn new things every day, but I promise you, we are going to continue the education until you get there, right? Next up, again, we talked about how important screen time is, and I can't not reiterate this enough, my friends, because I am positive of the 140 of you that are on tonight, minus Joel and J-Bab, so 138 of you are on tonight. I guarantee there is one of you out there who took a larger loss than you wanted, and on whatever trade it might have been today, and all of a sudden you're kind of feeling a little bit down on yourself, especially because, man, you just paid for this course, and it's like, oh my God. And I lost a bit. I had a big loss today, the day after we started the course. Come on, right? Like that's the mental feeling that I'm sure you're going through right now. There may be, I'm hopeful that it's nobody, but I'm sure that there's at least one person out there, whether they're ready to admit it or not, and you do not have to admit it by any means. But the cure, so to speak, of that is let's not let that happen again. I promise everybody, give me 14 days. Give me 14 days, and then you can start trading with single share size, as we're going to talk about tonight. Give me those 14 days. I can't reiterate that enough. It matters that much. Don't try and trade your way through these next 4 weeks. Just save your powder. Literally every former mastermind student that has ever taken the program, and there will be several in this particular meeting, whether it be a moderator or a team member or just a former student who is sitting in, whatever the case may be, right? There are countless of them. Every one of them will agree with you. Don't trade during the program or take it slow. All right. Next up, yeah, so this is, we already went through this slide yesterday. So let's move on to the stages of a trader. This is one of my favorite things in everything that we talk about throughout the entirety of this program. This is truly one of my favorite things to talk about, because there are very few of you will be in these first 1 through 5 stages. Many of you are going to be in the stages 6 through 8 or 6 through 9, but it's all truly separated by like one distinct factor, right? Again, I heard rumors these slides have made it elsewhere. I can assure you these were my slides originally, and they were created by me for Mastermind 1.0 way back in the day, right? But these stages of our trade are important to cover. So as we go through these, make sure to mark where you think you're at. Throw it in the chat. Where do you think you're at and why? What is the thing that you are struggling with, or what is the thing about that stage that resonates with you, right? So first, some of you may be in stage one where you learned about day trading and you may not have ever traded before. You may not have ever taken a trade. You might be a complete brand new beginner. And to those of you who are in stage one right now, the 14 of you who are there, congratulations, you found the one program that you need. Take it slow. You'd have no bad habits to unlearn. You have no chart confusion. You never have to worry about indicators. You are very lucky. Most people, including myself, have to go through a whole bunch of crap before finding this particular program. So for those of you who are brand new, congratulations. You are absolutely in the best place. Even if it seems fast-paced, I promise you, we're here to help you learn. And again, one last reminder, for those of you in stage one, if you ever feeling behind, just throw a support ticket in and let us know that so that we can make sure to get you back up to speed, right? Second, now the usual stage, and this really is an optional stage, but it was what happened for me personally, is that in stage two, you make a significant amount of profit in a very short period of time. Right now, the reason being for that is it's really like ignorance is bliss, so to speak, right? It's usually like you're dumb and you don't really understand, like you have a terrible R multiple, but you make 50 or 60% on a contract, right? Or something like that. Or you don't know that what 0 DTE are, and all of a sudden you're up 300% in 10 minutes and you're like, oh my gosh, right? So for me, what I did is a Wednesday into a Thursday, I swung CSCO options, Cisco options, a company that my dad actually worked for many years. And I made like 60 or 70%, or maybe even 100% of my money overnight, right? I was at home for Thanksgiving break, and I went downstairs and I told my dad, I was like, yo, I don't think I'm going to use this agriculture degree. I think I'm going to be an options trader. It was my very first ever options trade, by the way. And my dad looked at me and laughed. He goes, okay, Jake. Sure, big guy, right? He's like, let's just make sure you try not to lose that money. And I was like, fuck no, I'm not going to lose that money. Right? And stage two is great. It's extremely euphoric. However, it doesn't last very long. And usually stage three comes extremely quickly after, where you lose all of that money in an even shorter period of time. Because the next day on Friday, I bought a 0 DTE option and didn't realize that it was going to die like immediately. So I bought a 12-cent option thinking, oh my gosh, this might double. And yeah, it did not double. It went to 0 and I lost all that money. And I went downstairs for breakfast with my dad. And I was like, so I think I might use my agriculture degree. And I think I'm doing, so that's usually the path that it goes for people, right? Now, from there, if you do not completely blow your account, if you just manage to lose whatever money you make, usually in stage 4, you have total inconsistent profits, right? However, really what it is, and that's whether you're following signals from people, whether you're trying to trade on your own, whatever the case may be, in reality, the biggest thing that people struggle with in stage 4 is these significant losers that wipe out all your gains. So even on winnings, you might catch winning signals here and there, but on losing trades, sometimes you ignore your stop loss. You're not able to follow that stop. You're not able to follow that plan. And those big losers routinely wipe out your small gains and more from following signals, right? So I imagine there's about 14 of you who are in stage 1. There's probably another small chunk of you who are here in stage 4 who have just been following signals for a while, and you've decided that, you know what, I'm done with the signal life. I want to actually learn this on my own, right? You may or may not have reached stage 5 yet, and if you haven't, I promise you at some point you will. It's not a requirement of being a trader, but it pretty much is where you'll have what we call a massive tilt moment. Right? For those of you who don't know what the word tilt means, it means essentially a term that comes from gambling, where you, in that moment, completely abandon all of the strategy that you know how to use, and you base all of your decisions solely off emotions, right? So think of this when you're playing blackjack, when you have a table that you can see is cold and you're not doing well, and you have a bad hand and the dealer's showing a 10, but you just say, fuck it, I'm going to hit, right? And it's a stupid decision, or I'm going to double, whatever the case may be. Pardon my French, I don't like to swear in here, but sometimes I do, right? Where you make it emotionally based decisions, and all of a sudden you take this big, giant loss, right? Now, like I mentioned, I imagine there are a few people from stage 1 and a few people from stage 4 and 5 that are here now. But really, where I believe that most of you are likely coming from is these stages 6 through 10. And I genuinely believe that there's only a few very small differences between each of these stages. Now, stage 6 is where after a blow up, you have reloaded a mindset, you have reloaded your account, and you've now come to trading with a new mindset. Whether that be enrolling in a program like ours, which is, in my opinion, the best decision that you can make as a trader, or whether that's in terms of studying up on YouTube University for the longest time, trying every different strategy that you can because you're so determined to figure it out on your own. Whatever the case is, during stage 6, you come back to the market with a new mindset. Maybe you take a few weeks off. Maybe your parents yelled at you a little bit and they were like, you can't keep losing money. And you're like, okay. So you stopped, but then you're like, all right, fuck it, like I'm back, right? But you do approach it with a little bit of a new mindset. And you say that risk management is going to be key to me, right? Risk management is going to be key to me, right? Now, stage 7 is where most traders, I believe, who are in this program are at, in my opinion. I believe stage 7 and 8 is our most popular stages of traders that we are going to have. I believe that you all are seeing mostly inconsistent profits, right? And it's really key how you're forming those inconsistent profits. It's not random. Those inconsistent profits stem from a series of small winners, some small losers, right? But really what it is more big, medium/big losers, right? Most of the time, what people in stage 7 struggle with is two things. One, loss aversion, right? Where you end up taking losses that are larger than you anticipated because you refuse to admit you're wrong and follow your stop, right? And small winners because you are constantly watching your profit and loss as you trade, right? Now, one way that you can take a significant step in your trading from stage 7 to stage 8, right? Where I believe traders in stage 8 still have inconsistent profits. They have small, medium-sized winners, small losers, and these occasional big losers, right? Is two ways. The difference between stage 7 and stage 8 is that in stage 8, traders are not watching their P&L as much. They still sometimes are, but not as much. And that allows them to capture medium-sized winners because they're not selling as soon as they see 20%, right? And in stage 8, traders have started to accept their risk a little bit more, meaning that when their trade tells them they are wrong, they exit their position for a loss and move on, right? Next, we have stage 9, which I also believe many of you will be there right now as well, which is inconsistent profits, but you're very, very close. Right? You have small, medium, and big winners. You are able to let your winners run to 50, 100% sometimes, right? That is where this stage 9 differentiates from stage 8 truly, is that you are able to hold your winners longer, right? So some of you might feel like, Jake, I'm actually pretty good at holding my winners to 50, 60, 70%, right? And I'm actually pretty good at making sure that I follow my stops most of the time, right? Now, what really keeps the stage 9 traders in stage 9 as opposed to breaking through to stage 10. And I'm not saying all of you are at stage 9. I'm just saying that this is the one thing that most often keeps traders at stage 9, the one trait, right, is these bigger losers, right? They're still rare, but usually this is how it would go for me at least. My stage 9 was probably the longest stage of my trading career and hands down the most frustrating. What it would consist of is Monday through Thursday or Monday through Wednesday, I would have solid trading days. A good size winner on Monday, a solid winner on Tuesday, a break-even day Wednesday, a big winner day Thursday. But my real struggle were these big losing days on a Friday or on a Thursday or towards the end of the week that would completely wipe out the earlier week's gains. That's one of the things that I struggled with the most. And it didn't really stop until I recognized the different scales of it, right? Because the way that it would start is that I wasn't able to protect myself on one big day. I would have a big winning day, right? And then I'd end up losing it all the rest of that day, right? And then eventually I got a little bit better. I'd have a big winning day, but I'd lose it all on the next day. So then I got a little bit better. I'd have a couple winning days in a row, but then I'd lose it, right? And eventually got to a point where I would have a month straight of amazing, solid trading, right? I remember one month I was up $9,000, something like that, right? I was up like 9K or I was up 4K, close to that round number of 5 or 10K. And on the last day of the month, which also happened to be the last day of the quarter at the time, I put on way too much risk trying to get to that round number, right? And I would end up all of a sudden, rather than ending the month up $9,000, which would be amazing for me at the time, I end the month up a $1,500 because on the last day I give back a ton of my money with the thought process in my head. It's just my profit, right? No, I don't even need to ask how many of you have been there, because of the 145 of you on there, besides those of you who are newer traders, I know that almost all of you have been there at some point or at some capacity on some scale, right? So these are the various stages of a trader, and really what the breakthrough of stage 10 comes from in these consistent profits is a few different factors. One, you are able to get winners of all sizes because you are never watching your P&L. You are truly just executing based off the chart. And you are truly able to manage how often you have those bigger losers, right? I'm going to be straight up. You're always going to have big losers. Once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, they're going to come. The big losing days are going to come. It's hard to fully outright avoid those. There's very few people I know who have figured out mentally, because it really is only a mental thing at that stage, how to avoid big losing days for like years at a time. But for me, they still come every year, right? I'll have a bigger losing day, but it's about managing them, right? Now, stage 10, where the people in stage 10, what really gets the breakthrough to consistency in stage 10 is becoming a master of risk to reward, right? When you become a master of risk to reward, at that point in time, everything becomes significantly more robotic to you, as opposed to the emotions that we struggle with as normal human beings, right? All right, so everybody, right now, mark down or put in the chat or mark it on a piece of note paper, whatever the case may be. I want you to mark what stage that you think you're at. I know they might seem like they're similar, but again, those small differences on each one will really be a contributing factor as to what stage you think you're at. And we're going to circle back to this at the end. And I want you to let me know what you think were the biggest things that you needed to change, and how did you change those things based off everything I'm about to teach you? Because I promise you, I'm about to teach you the solution to all of these problems, right? So with that, the next thing that I would like to go through is what I call the ideal timeline for you all as traders, right? So you all are now in a $2,000 course. It's not cheap. I'm blatantly aware of that. It is expensive, right? The reason for that is because, one, I believe the value is crazy, but two, I want your full and dedicated commitment to it, right? So I am here to ensure that you all actually have a good chance of succeeding at a field that is very, very difficult. And in order for you to do that, there's a specific timeline that I would like you to take after you learn our technical system, right? So after tonight's lesson, I would like you all who are new to these platforms, if you're not new to the platforms, don't worry about it. Obviously, you don't need to paper trade. But if you are new to the platforms, what I would like you to do is paper trade for 1 to 2 days to understand the platforms. After that, I personally would like you to not paper trade any longer. I'd like you to move on and start trading into the next stage, which we'll talk about in just a second. But reason being for that, for me, is that paper trading has no emotions, and it's, I don't know, it's just, and this will vary for everybody, because I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. If you're the type of person that's like, Jake, I'm going to paper trade until I feel comfortable, then hey, no problem whatsoever. Do it. Literally no harm, no foul, right? I believe what is the more effective system, however, is to, after doing 1 to 2 days of paper trading, just to make sure you're pressing all the right buttons, right, is to move on to the single share stage. This is a stage that is extremely underlooked, right? This is the stage that I believe most people skip once they learn about options that they shouldn't skip, right? Which is especially after lesson 5, which is going to be taking place next week. I don't know whether it's Wednesday or Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's one of the, check real quick, just so I'm not talking at my booty here. Thursday, just like I thought. I was right at first. Thursday. On Thursday of next week, so literally 9 days from now, you are going to know our entire technical system through and through. Yes, there's going to be bonus lessons. Yes, there's going to be more material for you to learn. Yes. But after that day, after next Thursday, after you know the entirety of the system, I would encourage you to spend at least a few days, maybe a week or two, in the single share stage, right? Or if you're somebody that must trade over the course of the next few weeks, please stay in the single share stage. And the single share stage doesn't have to necessarily be one share. If you're somebody with a $25,000 account, you can trade 10 shares and you're going to be fine, right? It really just depends on how much capital you have. But the point of trading a single share or 10 shares as opposed to paper trading is that there's actually some money on the line. Yes, it might be $1 to $5, right, that you could potentially make or lose, and not a actual consequential amount of money in any way, right? But there's actually money in there. And you will actually feel the emotions that come along with being up money or down money, right? So paper trade for 1 to 2 days to understand the platform. Then no matter the experience level you're at, I don't care how special you think you are, until we finish lesson 5, you stay in the single share stage. And even if you're an experienced trader, after lesson 5, please stay in the single share stage. Or if you're a futures trader, it's the single micro stage, right? Where you are truly trading, because guess what? You're going to have to learn a brand new system and how to implement it, right? Now, after you have finished the single share stage, after you've traded that in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, however long it takes you to feel more and more comfortable with our technical system, from there is when you can start scaling up into options contracts, right? That's when you can start trading 1 to 2 contracts. I always recommend trading 2 contracts. I don't really like trading 1 options contract at a time, because I think you need to be able to trim. I think you need to be able to manage a position, right? And in tomorrow night's lesson, I'm going to give you an extremely thorough breakdown of an exact path for what you're going to do with a $2,000 account, which I also heard slides got put elsewhere, but where mine? I digress, right? Next, right? As you continue on here, you can continue to scale up your risk by contract size, but really what we're going to talk about tomorrow night is how I scale up risk is by dollar value, right? And you can ultimately end up scaling and adding risk onto your positions as you feel comfortable. That way you're not doubling your position sizes overnight, right? And that's really going to be the core of what we are going to dive into tomorrow night, right? Pause. Resume, right? So, all right, with that, my friends, we're going to dive into the thicker portion of tonight's agenda. We are going to dive into broker selection, right? Now, I've always prefaced this section by saying, literally whatever broker you like or want to use, you can use. That's fine. If you use E-Trade and you like them, that's fine. You use Webull and you like them, not happy about it, but that's fine, I guess, right? However, I've been trading for 6 years now, and I am very confident that the 2 best platforms that you can use as a trader, in my opinion, is Interact for trading options, which is primarily what I trade. For future stuff, we'll talk about that in a future lesson. Get it? The best broker that you can use to execute on is Interactive Brokers, and it's not close. There's light years difference between Interactive Brokers and anybody else for options execution. We'll talk about that more in just a second, right? Then for me personally, charting is really a toss-up. I prefer to use Thinkorswim for my charting. Thinkorswim is a platform made by TD Ameritrade, right? I prefer to use Thinkorswim. If you're somebody who prefers to use TradingView, I have literally no problem with that. That part is also just personal preference, right? I don't think that you need... I don't think that you need to favor one of those over the other, but I've been using Thinkorswim as my chart since the beginning, so I'll always be a Thinkorswim fan, right? So for me, I use Thinkorswim for my charts. That's what my chart screens, that's what I'm watching. And then on a separate window, I have a separate broker, Interactive Brokers, and their platform, Trader Workstation. These are reversed. This should be reversed. But Trader Workstation is the platform that I actually execute all of my trades off of, right? Now, the only time, oh my gosh, I have 6 okay, sorry. I had 6 notifications. I thought it was missed calls from like Joel or J Babs, but it was just a group chat. The only time that I would say that you should not use Interactive Brokers as your primary trading station is if you are trading on mobile frequently. If you're trading off your phone on a frequent basis, right, then what I would do is use Thinkorswim, because their mobile app is very nice. and it's superior, far superior to the Interactive Brokers mobile app, right? Sorry, hiccups today. All right, hiccups, acid reflux, right? So these are the two platforms: Interactive Brokers, Thinkorswim by TD Ameritrade, right? These are the two that I personally use. Now, the question people ask the most is, Jake, why do you use Interactive Brokers? And the answer is simple. The fills and execution speed on Interactive Brokers is light years, and I mean light years ahead of any other platform, including Thinkorswim, which is highly renowned for fills and stuff, which is bullshit. Their fills are not good, in my opinion, right? So let's say that an options contract had a bid of 425 and an ask of 450, right? And for those of you who are brand new, don't worry about too much of the details of that yet, right? But what I did when I first got Interactive Brokers was I spent an entire day going through the platform, through and through as much as I possibly could, right? And I just bought and sold stuff all day. And on my Thinkorswim account right next to me, I bought and sold stuff on the same name at the same time, right? Just testing out the various fills, right? On Thinkorswim, if you set a limit order at 425, which was the bid, the highest they're going to fill you is 425. They're going to fill you at the lowest point ever, and they'll capture that 10 to 12 cent difference that you could have got. On Interactive Brokers, I would routinely get filled at a significantly higher price than was showing at the bid ask on the time, right? So Interactive Brokers execution is like that, and the fills are mwah, because they have so many different exchanges that are offering. Basically, the liquidity is A+, right? So it does, when you think about it, it doesn't make a whole big of a difference when you're talking about contracts at 450, because some people might only have times. But if you're trading a contract that's 50 cents, right, or whatever the case may be, and you have a 7-cent wide spread, a couple hundred contracts, right, it really adds up for somebody who trades. No matter the size you trade, it adds up, right? Because even on one contract, that's an additional $15, right? Which is an additional like 3% return. Like it's not a small amount at all, right? So the pros of Interactive Brokers are that the fills are absolutely amazing. They are completely unreal, out of this world, right? The execution speed is also out of this world. But as soon as you press sell on Interactive Brokers or buy, as long as you get filled, right? What I hated on Thinkorswim for the longest time is I would press buy or sell, even on market orders, and I'd get that green or red line that would pop up on the chart, and it would start moving, right? Because I'd be like trying to fill me, but it would be moving. The options prices would be moving, but it wouldn't be filling me. And I'm like, what is happening? Doesn't happen on Interactive Brokers. I wouldn't be ranting about it for this long if the fills weren't actually that amazing, right? So the cons of Interactive Brokers, which there are a very, very few slim cons, is that they have a couple of annoying fees. They have data fees that you have to pay each month. I think it's like $12 a month, but most of them get waived as long as you make more than like 20 trades in a month, which I imagine most of you will, right? So the data fees are cheap, but they're there, and that's a con, right? You also pay a $1 withdrawal fee if you withdraw more than once a month. So if you want to call that a con, I guess you can, but to me, that's really not. And I will say that it is a clunky platform at first, right? And you are going to dive into the platform itself in depth tonight. So I'm going to be able to show you exactly how I lay out my Interactive Brokers screen. And it is going to look like Windows 98. Like it's going to look like a lot like Windows 9. Like it looks old. It looks clunky. That being said, it took me literally, and I'm not tech savvy. I know I'm a day trader and I should be, but I'm not. Like that's why I fucking moved Callan to California, so that he could be tech savvy and I don't have to, right? I'm not tech savvy. I figured out this platform and was able to read it like the back of my hand in 2 days, right? All it takes is trial and error, and you can do that that's why we have the 1 to 2 paper trading data stage, right? So it's a clunky platform at first, right? Now, the last potential con that one could consider of Interactive Brokers is the commissions. The commissions vary depending on whether you're providing liquidity or taking liquidity, but it can be as high as like $1 per options contract. I promise you, it's worth it. As somebody who literally spends like thousands of dollars in a day sometimes on commissions, it's worth it, right? It is 1,000% worth it. Why? Because the fills that you are getting on your entries and exits are that much better, right? I don't mind paying an extra 25 or 30 cents per contract compared to TOS or an extra $1 per contract compared to Robinhood, when I'm making an extra $15 per every number, that's 15 to 1 R to R basically, right? Like it's so like the commissions are negligible. And this is from somebody who's literally, my commissions this year like are disgusting. I haven't checked in a long time, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably into the very high 5 figures in almost 6 figures in commissions. Like it's just part of it's part of what I do. It's part of cost of business, doing business as a trader, right? If I traded on a platform like Robinhood, I would have a lower P&L because my fills would be worse. Do you see what I'm saying? I hope everybody is clear on this. I'm paying Interactive Brokers a lot of money to save and make more money than I would anywhere else. They make you that much more with their fills. It's the best trade of all time using Interactive Brokers as your options trading platform, right? Hands down. Okay. Now, before we continue on into the platform breakdown, usually during our lessons, which are longer, this is going to be the shortest lesson that we have throughout the course of the program. It'll likely be just about an hour. Normally we do a water break around the 5:45 mark. We get water and go to the restroom. Since we're changing our platforms here into Thinkorswim, let's go ahead and take a pause really quickly. Everybody go ahead and run to the restroom, grab some water. We'll be back in just like 2 minutes, and we'll go ahead and finish off very strong with our first lesson. All right? All right. BRB, everybody. All righty, welcome back, everybody. Let me go ahead and stop share. And now what I'm going to do is take you over into Thinkorswim, and we're going to do a brief breakdown of how I lay out my Thinkorswim charts, right? So let me give a fair warning here to 2 separate groups of people. First, For those of you who are more experienced traders, what we are about to run through might seem like review, especially for those of you who are familiar with the platform, but I promise you it's very intentional because I'm going to show you the exact way that I lay out my charts. And again, I promise you, I know that you want to learn the strategy. I know you want to learn the sauce. I know you want to dive into the charts. I promise you, everything is super, super calculated. On Thursday night, we are going to dive extremely deep into the strategy for a very, 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 very specific reason, right? For those of you who are the brand new ones, it might feel like we are moving through Thinkorswim extremely quickly and extremely fast. This is a very customizable platform that you could honestly spend several hours learning. It is not the best use of our time for me to give you a thorough breakdown of how to use every single tool within Thinkorswim. That's not the most efficient use of our time because you can schedule an appointment with a customer support agent from Thinkorswim, but literal job is to take you through the platform and show you all the tips and tricks and everything cool that you can use. And you can do that to get all of the basic understanding. That way, when you have my chart layouts, you can see exactly what I'm seeing, right? I promise you, this is the most efficient use of everybody's time across the board, right? So first things first, how this is going to work is I am going to post really quickly in the text lessons channel in the Discord. So if you all don't mind, just go to the MM section within the Discord, the MM area, and there's a channel in there called #text-lessons. Within that channel, I just wrote a note saying, hi, I'm going to tag Mastermind 10 right now. If you don't mind, just throw a tag on there for me. Say hi, say what up, whatever. Do not say hi, but just throw a check mark on there so you're following along with me, all right? Because here's what we are going to do. Throughout this process, I am going to show you and break down and have you lay out your charts the exact same way that I lay out mine, right? So first things first, I'm going to post a link. Right? I'm going to post a link there, right? What I want you all to do with that link is copy it, right? And then now we're back on Thinkorswim. We're on Zoom. We're on Zoom on the shared screen that you all can see. Right here in the top right corner, there's a wheel that says setup. I want you to press that wheel, click open shared item, and paste that exact link that I just posted in the text lessons channel. From there, you're going to get an option to import this. And that's exactly what you want to do. See if my flexible grid pops up or not. All right, it didn't pop up, but what it will do is that screen, this particular screen, and it'll actually be, I know it's going to look very compressed because I'm on my laptop right now, so don't worry about it. I'm going to send you all a picture of this on my more spread out monitor. The reason we're doing this on my laptop is that there's no issues on the screen being too big or whatever there was like we kind of had last night. So I know this looks very scrunched up right now, but what this is this is my main home trading screen. So when I am trading each day, this is the screen that I am watching and paying attention to on my main window, right? It might seem like a lot of charts. It is a lot of charts, but I promise you it's worth having all of these charts up, right? Now, one key thing that you may not be able to see, but I'm going to circle them real quick and I'll use the Zoom annotate tool for this, right? But right here, on this chart, I have the number 7, the 7 linked, right? On this chart, I have the 7 linked. On this chart, I have the 7 linked. On this chart, I have the 7 linked. On this chart, I have the 7 linked, right? So again, you may not be able to see it super well, but it's right here, right? Right at that link, right? Now, what that does is meaning that on these 5 charts, whenever I change the ticker, all 5 charts will change to match that same ticker. So I was just on NVIDIA now I'll switch to AMD. All 5 of these charts will switch to AMD. Now, again, of course, on my actual main screen, this looks much wider. I promise you, this is the one chart layout that it looks scrunched up. It's just because of this camera. Don't worry about it. I'll take a screenshot of it widened out. You'll be good. No worries, right? But the main thing that I want you to know is that these top 3 and bottom 2, these 5 screens on the left here are all linked for me. And the reason for that is on that name, whatever name that is that I'm watching or that I'm trading, for example, this morning, it was CRM, I am watching 5 different time frames at once on that name. Jake, why is that important? Why is this detail important? Why are you telling us this? I promise it's going to make a whole lot of sense after lesson 5 and even more so in lesson 8 when we tie everything together. But it's essential, right? Now, from there, the rest of the screen is what I call 5-minute like floater charts, right? So usually I have another name that I have on watched. Here it was Meta. On the bottom, I'll have another couple names that I had on watch. In the top right, I'll have the indexes, ES and the NQ, right? And this is basically just what I'm, all of those extra charts besides those, the one that's linked together are floaters, right? I can put any ticker in there that I'm watching and just paying attention to that's on watch that day, but it's not my primary watch. It's not my focus name. It's not my #1 watch. That name always has all 5 charts on there as once, right? Now, the last thing that I will have is in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, I will have an options contract chart. So what I will do is go over to the trade tab. I'll right-click an options contract. And I will paste it. I will paste it into the bottom right window. What that allows me to do is whatever contract I'm trading that day, I can keep an eye on it, right? Whatever contract I'm trading that day, I can keep an eye on it and use the chart to help determine my stop loss based on that options contract, which we're going to dive into in depth in lessons 2 and 3, right? So this is the first chart layout that I want you all to have, right? This is the first chart layout. It is the main home screen. Right? Okay, let's move on to chart layout number 2. This is our 4-grid index. So to open this up, we go through that same exact process that we just did. We click setup in the top right corner. We click open shared item. We enter the URL. Click preview, click import, and we load in that screen. So for me, what this screen is it's a 5-grid, or excuse me, a 4-grid chart of all of the indexes, right? So what I will do is keep this as a detached window on my little side, right? That way that I can always have an index and watch up of what all 4 of the indexes are doing at that point in the time of the day, right? I always like to pay attention to the 4 indexes, which we'll talk about what those are in a future lesson, but I like to have a grid with all 4 of them laid out. I also will use this as my laptop trading screen, right? So when I'm trading only off my laptop, what I will do is have this as my chart layouts, and I will be watching 4 charts at once rather than my normal screen that was very scrunched up that I showed you in the last one, right? All right, moving right on. Next up, we have what is known as the pre-market analysis. So again, same routine here. Let's copy and paste. Let's copy and paste. All right, so we're going to go to setup, open shared item. We're going to enter that link. We're going to click preview. It's going to show us that. We're going to click import, and it will open that up for us, right? Now, if you want to make sure to save this one, which you should be saving all of these, right? So I subtract all this shit. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. which you should be saving all of these, right? What we'll have you do is go ahead and click just up here in these top right corners and just click Save Flexible Grid As, and you can save it as whatever you are hoping to name it, right? For me, I would name this one Pre-Market Analysis, right? Right? So for me, this is as described and as it sounds like the grid that I use for my pre-market analysis. So each morning when I am going through my morning routine, trying to find stocks to trade each day, I will start by going through and looking at this grid, right? And I will scan and say, okay, I think this has the potential for this. Okay, I think this has the potential for this. What am I looking at? How do I find the stocks that I'm actually scanning? That's what we're going to cover over the course of the next 4 weeks. But this is the grid that I look to do analysis on each morning within it, right? So keep that in mind, right? Again, I promise you, we're going to come back to all of this for a very specific reason, like, right? We're going through all of this for an extremely specific reason. All 3 of these grids are crucial to my success as a trader, using all of them, right? We have the main screen, we have the 4-grid index, and we have the multi-time frame analysis / pre-market analysis screen, right? So, okay, from there, that concludes our Thinkorswim tour. Now, like I promised you, again, for those of you who are experienced, I'm not trying to go through Thinkorswim on a super in-depth level and take up a bunch of people's times, because Thinkorswim is something that is so customizable. For those of you who are new, I promise you, go through it with the customer support person. They will help you and teach you everything in a very thorough way. What I want everyone to take away, new or advanced, is to be able to come in and now have the exact same chart layouts as me, right? And it's important to have those same ones or very similar ones. I had a question today from a Mastermind 7 student who asked about a particular entry that they took. They sent their pictures of their charts. They tagged JBab. They said, hey, can you ask this? JBab was working out. I was like, I got it. I checked it. And they only sent a picture of the 2 and 5 minute charts. So my next question was, okay, well, what were the longer timeframes looking like, which we're going to cover in a later lesson? He said, oh, I don't normally watch those. And I was like, well, that's a big part of what we do, right? So me showing you these screens is not for no reason, right? It's because this is how I want you to lay out your charts, or have them laid out similar to that. That way you are watching these multiple timeframes. That way that you are not making similar to mistakes that other students make who do not use the same or similar chart layout, right? So, all right, with that, my friends, the next thing that I'm going to show you is exactly how I lay out my Interactive Brokers account, right? So I've already mentioned to you that I trade and execute off of Interactive Brokers. I use Thinkorswim as my chart layout platform, or as my chart reading platform. And Interactive Brokers is what I look to execute on, right? So I've signed into the paper one. I can't sign into my real one and hide the account number. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So I just end up signing into the paper one here. You can see with all the former MMs, right? And from here, what we are going to do, right, is set up the screen the exact way that I have mine set up, right? So as you open up Interactive Brokers Traders Workstation, what they will do is have a few default platforms, or a few default, excuse me, oh, that lost me. They have a few default screens here, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to click this plus, and we're going to create a new one. MM10 is the best MM. Don't tell them I said that. Don't tell anybody else I said that, right? But from here, what you're going to get is a completely blank screen that you can 100% customize on your own, the exact way that you want to. And here is exactly how I structure mine to execute my positions day in and day out, right? This is what I use every single day, right? So the very first thing that you're going to do is make sure that this green box, is unchecked, right? You want it to be unlocked. That way that we can start adding various windows to this screen, right? So the first thing that I do, I always add is an options chain, right? We are options traders, so we want to make sure that we have an options chain. So the first thing that I do is I grab my options chain and I put it in the top right-hand corner. That is where I like to keep. Why does it not let me click that? Right. Now, next, what I like to do is I'm going to add a watch list tab, right? So I've gone there, I've clicked watch list. Now you can drag and resize these. Why is it not letting me resize? There we go. Drag and resize. So I will drag and resize one of these watch lists over to this area down here. Next up, I'm going to come back up to new window. I'm going to click watch list again. And I'm going to create a second watch list and drag it right here. Right. So for me, what I will do is I like to use one of these watch lists for calls and one of these watch lists for puts. Right. It just helps my brain that way. It separates it out a little bit. Right. Now, next from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a screen called orders. Right. I personally don't like to watch my P&L as I trade. So instead, what I will do is create a screen called orders and put it in this bottom left-hand corner over here. Right? What this will allow me to do is just see whether or not my orders have been filled. Interactive Brokers also has a nice voice that yells at me and says, order filled, right? But I will keep this order screen down in the bottom left so I can see that, okay, I've set an order. Okay, it's filled. Okay, my trim is filled. My trim hasn't filled. My trim is, yes, it has it, or has it, has it, or has it, right? So this is how I've had it laid out so far. I have my options chain in the top right. I have my two watch lists, one for puts, one for calls. I have my orders thing down here to see if my orders are getting filled. Then I have a new window, my last window. I'm going to create one that says portfolio, right? Oh, damn, I still have NVIDIA. You know, I did this, and I think it was like Mastermind 2 or 3 or 4. I don't know, one of them. I set a buy limit on NVIDIA, and I guess I forgot to cancel it. And so it bought, and then the option contract got exercised. So I got the 500 shares. So I guess my paper account was up 1,000. Can I trade lives with my paper account today? That would be so much more fun. Yay. Right? But I digress, right? From here, I add a portfolio tab. Now, as I mentioned, I don't like to watch the P&L as I'm in the trade. So what I will do here is click this little plus and click watch list, right? From there, you can select any watch list. We'll just do a new one for now, right? And for me, this is the watch list that I will keep of stocks that I like to trade each day, right? So there's a bunch of them different on there, but AMD, NVIDIA, I'll get the full list posted, but we're going to talk about that more in lesson 2, so don't worry about it, right? But you just type it in, and for some reason, Interactive Brokers is big on Shift Enter. So to enter it, you type it in, and you hold Shift and press Enter. Right? So each morning, as I'm going through and doing the pre-market analysis that I named, right? If I see a name that is tradable that day, right? Like let's say I come to the conclusion that I'm open to trading AMD that day, right? I will then click on AMD. I will go over to the options chain over here and say, okay, I'm interested in trading the 142 calls. Why would I select that, or 112 calls? Why would I select that strike, Jake? What's the strategy? All that. Promise, we're going to get there. This is just necessary information for me to give you. I then drag it over and I will put it in my call watch list, right? Let's say for some reason I'm bearish on NVIDIA, even though I'm bullish on AMD, and I wanted to put the NVIDIA 415 puts in my watch list, right? That as well would be exactly, it's not valid, but that's exactly what I would do, right? Pause. Now, the last step for me to assembling the exact screen that I trade with each day is to go to new window up here and click book trader, right? Now, for me personally, the way that I literally execute all of my trades, every single one, is as I'm in a trade, I will type the quantity, I'll type 100, then I will click the ask, right? And I will then go and manually press transmit. If I'm changing the limit price, I'll change it. If I'm not, I'm not. But I will go and manually click transmit. Now, there is a way if you'd like to make it so that as soon as you click right here, it executes. There's a way, if you like, to have it act like Thinkorswim's active trader with this ladder here, right? There's a way, if you like, to add hotkeys or use a stream deck where you can just press trim or press buy or whatever it is on like a key deck, right? There's a ton of million different ways to customize this platform. But what I literally choose to do is every single time I'm entering a position, I click the ask and then I click transmit. And I manually transmit it. And most of the time I have to do the override and transmit because I keep my limit at 50 because I like to have, and even though I'm trading more than 50 contracts all the time, because I like to click override. Why? Because for me, it's an extra layer of, are you sure you want to take this trade? Unlike Thinkorswim, as soon as I press go, Interactive Brokers is going to fill me, right? Sometimes you'll miss a fill and you have to change the limit, but it's very rare compared to literally any other platform. So I can afford the extra half a second it takes for me to really check, okay, do I want to take this trade? And clicking transmit, then the override gives me 2 layers of that, right? And that helps me because I have a tendency in the past to be very trigger happy of clicking buy, 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 right? And so in order to combat that, I like having those extra layers of protection. So sure, hotkeys may be faster, a stream deck may be a better way to execute, but the way that I personally prefer to execute every single one of my orders, right, is literally manually click the bid or the ask, right? Manually click the bid or the ask, and then actually press transmit on all of the orders. With that being said, though, this is literally exactly how I have my screen laid out. So this is how I lay out my Interactive Brokers platform. I'm sure that you could get more fancy with it. You could utilize these buttons if you want. I don't. I literally do everything manually through the transmit. And that, for me, is the best way that I've just gotten really comfortable with doing it, right? But with that, my friends, that actually brings our very first lesson to a close. Now, this will hands down be the shortest lesson of our program. And tomorrow night, we are going to take a deep dive into risk management and psychology. And I promise you, I am going to teach you things that are not found on YouTube, that are not Googleable, not generic, none of that shit. It's going to be a very, very, very in-depth breakdown of risk management and trading psychology. And then on Thursday night, we are going to do a thick deep dive. It will likely be an hour 45 to 2 hour lesson on the first pillar of our technical strategy, diving into the chart. So please do not skip any lessons. Please do not be the person that thinks you don't need the risk management one. That's the worst thing that you can do. We're going to talk about dynamic R multiple, which is something that most traders never cover, right? And we're going to do a very, very thorough breakdown. But even though this is one of the slower lessons in terms of material being taught, I hope that you take away that the energy levels that I bring, even on a day that I am exhausted, are always going to make these classes engaging, fun, interactive, and I'm going to keep you on your toes. That being said, I myself am extremely excited to get into our next 4 lessons. They are going to be very, very thick. They're going to be very, very powerful. They're going to absolutely change the way you trade. I can promise you that. So with that being said, my friends, that's all I have for you tonight. Again, any questions that pop up, please feel free to post them in the Discord. If you are one of those beginners and you're feeling a little bit behind, just make a support ticket. We'll get in touch with you. Nobody gets left behind. Nobody feels left behind. I promise, I promise, I promise, I promise, I promise. And I also promise, again, that this information, I wouldn't cover it if it wasn't absolutely necessary to your success, right? So with that, very, very grateful for all of you tonight. I hope you have an amazing rest of your night. I love you very, very much, and we'll talk soon. All right? All right. Cheers, gang, 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 gang.